We're so psyched to speak with you today. I hope you've been enjoying NFC 2022. Real quick introductions. Welcome to our session, Jason Ortiz and Christina Goldschmidt. Let us do some really quick introductions and we'll dive right into it. So, Jason Ortiz, my pronouns are he, him. My current role today, I work in enterprise customer success at Section 4. We sell online MBA courses, and I'm also a professor on the side at NYU Stern School of Business. I think it's appropriate for this conference. My parents are Filipino immigrants from the Philippines, and I'm going to hand it over to Christina.
Thanks, Jason. Also so excited to be here. As Jason said, Christina Goldschmidt, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the VP and head of product design at Etsy. And also, as Jason was saying, I'm also, my mom is a Vietnamese American immigrant, and also something that I think is also interesting to share is that I'm dyslexic, so I also consider myself to be neuroatypical too. So something else to consider.
I love that you shared that. I mean, now I feel like I should share a little bit more. Everyone can kind of see my LGBTQ pride. I also identify, I've been diagnosed with ADHD, and that's also part of who I am, and embraced it in being a leader. So I guess we're here to talk to you about our STEM careers today. Starting off, I guess, with me, I work for this EdTech, Section 4, and we sell MBA courses online. The original thought was that we really wanted to, elite MBA education was very much, there was less than 1% of MBA grads who were able to go to these institutions. And so the founder of our startup decided we should try and unlock that and make MBA education, elite MBA education, more accessible. So we started Section 4, and through our organization, we've schooled 18,000 people through the frameworks and learnings from elite MBA professors, as well as very like seasoned tech executives. But that's what I do there. And then the side hustle, working at NYU Stern School of Business, it's very much more traditional education. I love being in the classroom. So not exactly STEM, but kind of in the realm of education altogether. I definitely did not start my career there, but a little teaser for what's to come later on. But Christina, tell us a little bit more about your STEM career.
Well, really quickly, you're not giving yourself enough credit, Jason, because you are educating the technology leaders of the future. Those are the people that are in your classroom at NYU Stern. So I know that that's also a major aspect of who you are teaching. So just want to give you those props. But at Etsy, for those that don't know, it's a double-sided marketplace to find all things that are special, handmade, and vintage. And so we have 5.3 million sellers that sell on our platform, and there are millions and millions of customers across the world that actually buy something on Etsy, like from us every year. So really excited to be providing all of that economic empowerment to so many sellers and really helping people to buy so many special things, especially gifts around the holiday season. When they have so many choice to buy whatever they would like, they can actually come to Etsy and find something and maybe even get something fully customized or made for them. So it's really exciting to democratize being able to bring artisans into your own home.
Oh my God, I love Etsy. I feel like I just go down that Etsy, always Googling for cool cards, vintage pins, my pins.
Oh, yes.
This one I got from actually a few of these I got from Etsy. I just feel like it's so cool to be able to connect with people in their crafts, their trade, and being able to connect with them directly. And Christina, I love that your platform does that.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess we should talk about how we got to our cool roles.
Absolutely. Why don't you
right?
start, Jason?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I will say, finding your post-college role, this can be super, super, super intimidating. The big takeaway is I don't think it has to be, right? So I graduated from a liberal arts school. I majored in sociology, minored in education. I remember talking to mentors on campus and asked for advice, like, what should I do? What do you think? And they're like, Jason, you know what? You'll figure it out. Um, and for me, I went home to Houston. I went to college in the Northeast, and I went home to Houston to kind of just chill out from school first, realign, save some money before moving to New York. I moved to New York City. And why New York? It wasn't because I was like, oh my God, I love the Big Apple. It wasn't that. It was because I knew that I didn't really know what I wanted. And there was a successful iteration of anything I might want to be in New York City. I also had an offer from a really good friend to sleep on her couch for a few weeks while I try and orient myself. So for me, I moved to New York City and without a job and just kind of like started the search from there.
Wow, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. That is, that is so brave. Look at you.
So the big message to people: you don't have to have a job. You don't have to have an offer in hand. You don't have to have it all figured out right after college. So that was kind of like my big message to you, Christina. I know you have a similar story.
Yeah, actually, same thing for me. So, I actually had planned to be an anthropologist. And so I started out going to a liberal arts school as well. And then when I got there and said, hey, I want to use tech, this was in the mid 90s, right? I wanted to use tech in the social sciences. They were not ready. And so then I transferred to the Northeast to go to an engineering school and transfer into like a hybrid design and computer science degree. And because I was at a Northeast school, I wanted to come back to my hometown, which was the Washington, D.C. area. So it was very hard to use campus recruiting at all to do that. So there were no avenues for me at that time. So I had no job when I left school. So I went back, moved in with my parents in Northern Virginia, and then started looking. I also actually ended up graduating off cycle. And so I graduated in December, which also made it, not the normal time when people are looking for undergraduates either. And
Right.
so I just, tried to talk to recruiters, tried to apply to jobs online, and was very lucky that I was able to find a job and got a really great job working at the discoverychannel.com. Which was exciting for me because I got, that sort of bridge back to that exciting kind of history content, anthropology content too.
With the anthropology. And it was
Yeah.
also closer to home, which is where you had wanted to be, right?
Exactly. But then it took me months at that time to find an apartment. So it was really hard because the Discovery Channel was all the way in Maryland. So it was like an hour-long commute. So things don't always come together in the exact right order, but you have to piece it all together, have faith, work on it piece by piece, but it will come. It will come.
I definitely know how that can feel. You're like, oh my gosh, you need it to all, at least you have the job. All right. Then you take the next step, find the apartment.
Yes.
So next step, whatever might come, a nicer apartment, the perfect roommate, right? Like piece by piece, I guess for me, once I moved to New York, that was step one. Let's get to a city where all the opportunities are. And similar to you, I had lots of conversations. The first thing I did was I signed up with a recruitment agency because I knew that I was like, I got to pay those bills. I need money coming in to pay for this rent. My friend is only going to be so nice to let me stay on her couch for so long. So I signed up with a temp agency, and what that allowed me to do, I know that these aren't permanent roles, but I got to taste. I felt like I was at this like job buffet where I got to sample different sorts of jobs. And one of the jobs I had was I was an editorial assistant for a textbook publishing firm. I got to try that out for a little bit.
Uh-huh.
didn't like that. Too quiet. Working with authors, I didn't like the back and forth on working with their manuscripts, basically their babies. It was not fun for me, and I'm not the best reading or writing person. I got a job working in sales and marketing for a real high-end hotel, and that was fine for a little bit, but I didn't love the clientele that we were specifically working with. And then it just so happened then that I interviewed with Citi, like a bank, and the role just seemed so interesting and different for me that I was like, let me try this out. So that's how I landed my first role in banking, I guess my foray into my STEM career. So
no, I think it's what I love about that story that you just told, Jason, is that ability to try different things and to find what you like and sort of where your passions are. I think for me, I had this dream that I was going to be this one career, and it completely isn't what I ended up being. Yeah. But what you sort of told a story about is finding something really interesting, finding something that really appeals to you, finding challenges that you're really interested in, finding transferable skills, right? That sounds actually even different from the degree that you got. And probably working with people that you really enjoyed, right? Like, I think part of it was meeting different types of people. You were talking about that hotel, not having the right kind of clientele. So being able to look around, try different things, and knowing that one job isn't the end all be all, and that one even industry isn't going to be where you're stuck forever. I love that.
No, it's definitely like, I mean, I guess some advice for you all today, consider it like a data finding mission, right? As you take these roles, consider that you'll land an opportunity somewhere, but be curious and see, what about this do I like? I mean, okay, for me, I was like, oh, banking, the opportunity might be kind of cool. This is going to be so different, and I will learn a lot of skills. Let that be a data finding mission for how you might want to shape like the future of your career and the directions that you might want to take. So
Jason, I was going to say, how did you actually end up pivoting your career after your great career in finance into EdTech?
Oh man, there are definitely a few steps there. And Christina, we both know this on both ends. I mean, you definitely don't need to know what you want to do right away. I think my first step, I stayed in banking for about 10 to 12 years, or at least in financial services more broadly. In the middle of my banking career, I came out. So it was with the help of a manager who I grew close to, a very inclusive workplace where I was at the time. And they had an employee resource group. So that's almost like, if you think about like on campus, like a club of LGBTQ people and their allies who are all invested in trying to make gay people feel more welcome at work. So it was through that I felt comfortable to come out. And I was like, you know what? Inclusion is really important. And I want to work in this at some point. From that, though, part of being curious, I was like, that coming out planted the seed that I'm like, I think that there's something really cool here. So I started to look for opportunities where I could get more involved in inclusion. So I was very involved with our employee resource group, or, you could think about it's the LGBTQ and allies clubs at work. I helped to head some of those up. I moved to Singapore with my bank, and there were no LGBTQ employee resource groups there. So I helped to start some up there. And at some point I decided, you know what, I like this enough. I'm going to take the plunge. And I had enough data where I'm like, I want to try this next. So I left banking and moved into a more formal diversity and inclusion role. But so still not ed tech, but Christina, how did you get to Etsy?
Yeah, actually, I've had lots of twists and turns and been in lots of different industries. So after my time in DC, I moved to New York to get my MBA. And then that allowed me to move into design for financial services. And so I was working at Morgan Stanley on the wealth management business, leading UX teams there. And then I got recruited actually into ad tech. So ad tech at that time needed people who were really good at visualizing data. And so that came out of financial services, right? So those were the designers who were really good at that. The environment in ad tech wasn't for me though. And so what ended up happening was I took a freelance job at a small boutique agency that was an e-commerce agency who got a client in insurance. And so what's interesting is that insurance is actually a sub product that gets sold in wealth management. And so I was able to basically 2 jobs later go to this insurance job from that previous wealth management job. And that actually was really cool because that client was in Japan. So I got to go to Japan all the time.
So cool.
And then, so I then ended up really, really going hard with that company and helped to transform them into being a insurtech innovation agency. And then that led me to Accenture, where I did all kinds of new business innovation as a management consultant. And then all of that led up to me going to Etsy. So because I had that e-commerce, I had that innovation, I was incubating new companies. So I had a lot of leadership skills. And so that's really how I landed at Etsy, is that all kinds of different steps got me there.
Wow. Lots of lessons to learn there. I mean, the very first one that really, jumps out at me is that skills that you pick up, specifically you were saying, skills that you picked up at Morgan Stanley were useful. I mean, they were useful like in your next ad tech role, but they really helped get you the job when you moved into insurtech.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Right. And so it's funny how that kind of path, you can start and stop it, right? So, which is really interesting.
I mean, and that was the other thing that I was going to say. When you do that, it makes me think like wayfinding, and that wayfinding career paths, it is not a linear process, right? It's not a linear process. I mean, I guess too, how I got at Section 4, I worked in DEI for a while, and still being curious about my career, I ended up going back to get my MBA part-time. I was like, let me see what else other opportunities there were. I liked DEI, but I was like, I don't know that I want to do this for the rest of my career, at least in this specific role. I went back to NYU Stern School of Business. We have this in common. I did this part-time, and there really, that led me to my career in education, in ed tech. The specific way that I got this role was I couldn't get into one professor's class, Scott Galloway's class, and he is known for brand strategy, one of the most popular classes at NYU Stern School of Business. And I thought, well, if I can't get into his class, I know he's got this startup called Section 4. Maybe I could get his teachings from just being there. So I applied there and started working there part-time, and really ended up loving the environment of ed tech. There were pieces of it that felt like it had the pace of banking. It had pieces of inclusion that I really liked, because education really it unlocks potential for so many people. I got to help set up a scholarship program there. And it was fun and new and innovative, and I really enjoyed that. And while in the ed space, I was like, I love the impact that we have on students, future tech leaders, but also just future rising leaders in general. So I got to teach in the classroom at NYU Stern School of Business, unrelated, somewhat related. And all of this, it definitely, if you would have told me back when I started in banking 20 years ago, Jason, you're going to be in ed tech, I definitely would not have thought about that. This is definitely the wayfinding at its best.
Yeah. No, I think that's what's really interesting about careers, is that technology is always changing, which opens up new opportunities. And what I really like about that story is you get all this access to that really important professor now, more so than if you would have taken his class in the first place.
Totally. And from a different point of view, right? From a totally different point of view. So in a sense, my goals, like they still did kind of work out, right? I couldn't get into Scott's class, but now, you're right. I helped and I helped to host him at one of our enterprise companies as a public speaker last week, and thank Christine was part of the audience for that. But you're absolutely right. You never know how things kind of align in the end. But all right, I guess, should we give some top tips? I mean, I feel like we've been talking a lot about our careers. Maybe we should tell some of our audience members like some of our top tips.
That sounds great.
Right. I guess the first one is kind of, you never know where opportunities are going to arise from. And Christina, you have like a perfect example on this.
Right. So when I was starting out, I actually had previous experience before I got that Discovery Channel job. I had freelance experience doing front-end development. And that's how I actually knew that I wanted to switch into design, because when you were doing front-end development, you also had to do the design for it too. But my mom is a manicurist, which is a very common job in the Vietnamese American community. And at the time, she was doing the nails of all these CEOs and CFOs in the DC area. And when they came to get their nails, they would also get their daily therapy session. And they would say, Nat, I have this problem. What is the internet? Have you heard of this thing? It's keeping me up at night. And then my mom would pass them my business card, and then they would call me and they would give me freelance jobs, and I would get to actually build a portfolio of sites that I had designed and built for them, for their companies. And so it was just great to see my mom driving, like being my little recruiter,
Yeah, helping you along. And you would never think that. You would never think that because your mom does not work. She's not a front-end developer, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's honestly, today, my mom still doesn't really even know what I do.
Same. Mom's like, I tell my mom, like, ed tech startup, she was like, can we just go back to banking? I knew what that was, Jason. I guess for me, with, opportunities and not knowing where they come from, when I first moved to New York City, I had signed up with these recruitment agencies, and those are only typically known for temp roles. And it wasn't until I had spoken with maybe my third or my fourth recruiter, and she was like, you know what, Jason? I know that they are hiring full-time roles at Citi. This role is not under my purview, but I love your story. Let me connect you with someone in HR there and see if it's even a fit. And sure enough, that's how I started in banking. So that was like the most indirect. This woman was not hiring for this Citi job. She just happened to be in this community of recruiters, probably similar to your mom. Your mom was in touch with all of these tech women leaders who needed help with this. And that's how I ended up working at Citi. So you never know where opportunities are going to arise from.
Well, I think really relationship driven, right? Mm-hmm. You're giving an example of how you can tell your story, you can show your passion, you can show your drive, and then someone's going to champion you, right? I think that's another good tip that we can give is actually going on informationals. In a sense, even with that recruiter, you were sort of doing informationals, right? Yeah. But if you start to interview people who have really interesting jobs that you're interested in, and then you'll learn about a variety of different careers that are out there, but you can do that exact same thing, right? You can start to show them your passion, your knowledge, and that could lead to other jobs. So for my niece, she really wanted to be a data scientist, but there were no campus recruiting jobs for that. And she had gone maybe 6 months out of school without being able to find a job. And I was able to get her an informational back at that ad tech company. And she was able to turn that informational into a job. And now she has an amazing career as a data scientist at Spotify. And she just is, through the moon with everything that's been able to lead to for her. And so I think you can really leverage wonderful informationals like that to turn into great opportunities.
No, totally. Because they get to connect with you and then they see your passion for the role. And at times they may not have the role themselves, but maybe they connect you to somebody else, or they give you some insight that tells you more about those sorts of jobs. So yes, absolutely. Interview with cool people with interesting jobs to learn about them. Be curious, right?
Yeah. And I think also they'll see how respectful you are and how interested you are in the role. And that also just puts you out as a quality person that they want to help. Right. And I think that sort of ladders back to your story too. People start to champion you, and that really gives you a lot of momentum.
No, totally. I mean, everyone wants to, people want to help each other out, right? Mm-hmm. And especially if you are putting forth the effort to reach out, people want to get behind that and will want to champion you. Maybe it's not always, but you never know with these meetings, right? You never know when you're connecting with people. Yeah. I guess another tip that kind of makes me think, as you're doing a lot of this, curiosity, as you are being curious about different fields, also be curious about yourself and get to know how you like to work, right? Get a sense for what really gives you energy and what aligns you with the sort of impact that you want to put out there in the world. You got to be careful. Like I feel like definitely in the Asian, like they're in Asian communities with my immigrant parents, I hear stories of like, you got to be this path, or you got to go down and do this. Or even at schools, you ought to do this, or with campus recruiting, I should go after those sorts of rules. But I think part of that is like understand what really drives you and how do you like to work, learning how you like to work. So
yeah, I think that's really important, is to get to understand all those things and to also really have your own North Star. When I was growing up, my parents basically said, avoid the arts. And I'm a designer and I do very well as a designer. It took me a long time to figure that out because I had them in my head saying, oh, that is not a lucrative career path.
Right.
But instead I was going to be an anthropologist, right? Like that's a very different kind of
doctor or lawyer, Christina. Those are the options. But no, absolutely. You and had you listened to that, you wouldn't be where you are today.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
For me, my parents, I was fortunate enough to have parents that they didn't really steer me in any one specific way. So that was very fortunate for me. But I definitely did feel the pressures with my peers to see what were they going after. I saw people do corporate recruiting, which I didn't even really understand what that was as an undergrad. I just knew that people would, all of these big name companies would come on campus and people would clamor over these interview spots and they would talk about resume drop. It was almost like a foreign language. And I knew that in some of those companies, I'm like, I'm not sure that I like what all of this stuff is. I don't even really understand what investment banking is quite really. And I didn't like the pull that I had with that. I mean, I ended up joining a bank afterwards, but I came to it in a very different way. But I guess for me, what's my takeaway with learning how to work there? I guess the discovery is I needed to discover it for myself and not get pushed through a corporate recruiting process. But getting to know how you want to take on these opportunities and how you get introduced to them, knowing how you want to work. So
yeah, I think that's great advice. I actually experienced the same thing in business school. People were very laser focused and had ideas about what was the prestigious way to go, what were the right classes to take, and was very happy that I didn't follow that because I ended up graduating business school at the downturn of 2008. And if I would have I had 2 summer job opportunities, the traditional CPG path at Johnson & Johnson, or the only digital job at the time at American Express. And everyone was like, oh, that Johnson & Johnson job, that is the hardest job to get. Do it. And then at the last minute, I was like, well, digital is my passion, so I'm going to do this Amex job. And thank goodness I did, because I then ended up graduating at the downturn of '08, and my whole plans to go immediately back into design didn't materialize because the job market, fell out. But Amex was willing to still take me on as a product manager, and that gave me so many great skills. And so being able to follow what you believe is the right thing really was such a great opportunity that really saved me in the end.
Blessing in disguise, right? You choose wisely, choose as you feel, and only you're going to know that, right?
Right.
And only you're going to know that.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of it, Christina. I think we've had a lot to say.
So much.
I hope that this was educational, and that you pulled for our audience, and I hope that you pulled something out of our experiences. But thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
And best of luck with your journeys.